Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're continuing our pandemic projects, trying to do one of these a day. This one is a reel. It's an Ocean City / True Temper 922C. I get that question all the time. It reads True Temper on here. And they said, are they related? Well, they are related. True Temper was a sporting goods outfit that purchased Ocean City in the late 1950s. So you'll see Ocean City reels that are branded as Ocean City. You'll actually see Ocean City reels branded by a various bunch of retailers, and you'll also see Ocean City's design show up in the True Temper, and the intermediate one is usually Ocean City / True Temper. So True Temper is the latest of the editions of that, and we're going to work on a 922C today. It's a nice heavy-duty level line reel, comparable to the Penn 209 series in the Pure line. And I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to show you how to tune this one up and how to keep it functioning nice. And this one's from one of our viewers. It's from Kevin. So I've started by taking off the external parts. There's a screw that is either accessible by a very wide-bladed screwdriver, or you can use a regular box wrench on it to take that off. Some of the Ocean Cities actually have the handle wrench attached. This one does not. So we'll take the handle off, and then I'm going to back off the star drag adjuster. Then there's a metal washer, and then there's the gear sleeve. So take pictures along the way. If you don't know what's inside this reel, I recommend that you always take the pictures. That way you'll have a reference point, and the pictures can be anything. I'm taking pictures right now. Obviously with a video, you don't need to video. You can use a still camera, you can use your cell phone camera, anything. But take pictures along the way so that you can remember the sequence, the pieces and the parts that you've taken off. You'll also notice I have a protective glove on my hand, and I also use a parts tray, which is that little bottom of a milk jug back there that I have in place. So I'm taking out the side plate screws now just to check to make sure that they're all the same size. And if there's anything that's different, I want to notice where they came from so that I can put them back in. And there's a good example. These two, or at least that one, is longer, and those belong in the reel seat. So I have two long and two short. That's what you want to notice as you take these out. The long ones, interestingly enough, kind of the opposite of Penn. The long ones belong in the reel seat. The short ones belong in the crossbars. Once you take those four off, then you can remove the side plate. This has got a solid frame, so you do not remove the frame plate. It only comes out this way. So if you've tried to take this off and you're tugging on that, it's not going to work that way. We're going to pull the spool just to check underneath here. You have the drive gears for the worm. It's driven off the back of the spool. You just want to check to make sure all the teeth are working right. I just did a reel for Jeff, one of our viewers, and I made a kind of a rookie mistake, if you will. I noticed that this was chewed up, so I ordered the idler gear. And I checked all the teeth on the worm gear, and everything was fine, and then I forgot that Penn has a plastic spool drive gear, and sure enough, the teeth on the spool gear were worn. So always check that spool gear in addition to checking the idler gear and the worm gear. Turn it by hand, make sure that those teeth all mesh properly and that you're in good stead with them. Now, this is a composite gear here, so you don't have to put any lubrication on that, but you do want to get some lubrication into the cavity where the spool is going to ride. Little bushing back there. And that'll suffice. And then you can check the back of the spool again, put a little bit of grease onto the drive mechanisms, the click mechanism, and then just reinstall that and you'll be fine there. We want to service the worm gear, pawl, and line guide assembly while we're on it. So this came out conveniently enough. We're going to take the screw out remove the sleeve. We'll just put a drop of oil in here, make sure that that soaks in, and then just reinstall. Now the worm gear seems nice and clear in the channels. We're just going to reinstall this, and then we're going to give it a drive, make sure that it turns all about. Right now I'm just trying to seat that small screw, which me and small screws have a little bit of an issue with. And as soon as we get that one started and screwed in, we'll go ahead and put some oil onto the worm gear. Now I use oil. I don't recommend grease, particularly if you're in a saltwater environment, because if you're using grease in a saltwater environment, the micro sands in that tend to trap in that grease and wear it down. So this one's working perfectly. We're just going to go ahead and put this back in. You go through the hole, then you come back in, you make sure that you're locked into the groove, and then you're locked into the drive back here. So that part is ready. We're just going to add one more piece of grease to the shaft of the spool there, and then we're going to set that aside and come over here and service the side plate assembly. So this one is pretty standard for an Ocean City type of reel. One kind of difference here is we have a C-clip or an E-clip that's holding on the jack rather than a screw. So you just want to hold one side of that clip. You don't want to shoot that clip. Then I have a variety of little tools. This one just happens to be a small screwdriver. You want to work the clip off without shooting it all over the place. Sometimes you're more successful at it than others. Right now this clip is running up against the back of the jack here. There you go. So the clip is off now, and you notice I was pretty careful trying not to shoot this clip. I'd be a liar if I said that it works easy like that all the time. Sometimes these do fly. They are springs, so just be aware of that. Once you have that off, you can move the jack up to the release position there, and then you should be able to slide that out just like we did there. It pulls up. You have a hole that's riding on a stud here. You pull that up and pull that out. All right, that releases the yoke and the gear, and it releases the inner gear, and then we can come over and work on these two after we remove the springs. Those go in my bucket so I don't lose them. The anti-reverse spring is located right on the bridge here, so that's a good thing. That doesn't shoot. I'll take the two bottom ones off, and then we'll clear our deck and we'll show you. In this case, this is not uncommon that you get a nut that kind of spins in place. I'm going to put a little bit of WD-40, a penetrating oil, on those two, and then I'm going to hold it with the pliers on the back as I turn the nut, or turn the screw from this side. Holding the nut, turning the screw. There you go, that's one out. We'll see if the other, if we're as fortunate. That's a sleeve, and sometimes that sleeve kind of runs into place there. Put that in there. We'll try the other one, see if we have any better luck. Nope, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to grab the back of that nut with the pliers just to hold it. Some dexterity required, not much. And this will release the other piece of the assembly, and then we can go to work on that drag and the gear sleeve. So there's our piece. And if you like, it makes any easier for you, you can put that screw right back into that collar so you know where that goes. We're going to pick up the rest of this while we're at it. Now I laid this down on a desk, and this is a good example of where you want to take pictures. Let's just say it came out this way. It's very easy to forget what the front of this is. This happens to be the front, but I laid that down on the desk without doing it. So If you had taken pictures along the way, you would have noticed that. And if you got stuck somewhere in terms of the servicing, which we're going to do right now, it's good to know how to reinstall that. All right, a little bit of grease onto the shoulders of the yoke. And go ahead and put the carrier back in now. A little bit of grease onto the back end of the pinion gear. We're going to check all the teeth. This reel is nice and clean inside, no cleaning required there. And only one side can fit into this carrier, like that. And then we'll put some grease onto the other side of that, and we'll just lay that into the bin waiting for reassembly. Now we're going to go ahead and work on the drag system here and the gear sleeve. As I mentioned, this is attached on here, so there's not a big problem with that. We're going to poke out the pin that holds the gear sleeve. Sometimes easier said than done. Sometimes you need to tap it. I'm using a little pin here. Just having a little tough time getting started. There we go. So you want to push that pin out. And again, this is the bottom of an electrical tester for those of you that often wonder where to get that tool. That's kind of an improvised tool there. And then you can pull the pin out. This is the pin you were doing because that's holding the gear sleeve here. And you want to make sure that you clean under that. That gear sleeve there is a good hiding place if you don't take care of that. And I'm just putting those two pieces right there as we go ahead and clean this up. You want to get all that dried grease off of there. That's a cause for poor performance in reels. Just going to use the blade of my screwdriver to scrape that stuff off. It's been hiding there a while, there's no question about that. And if you want to help degrease it a little bit, you can use some penetrating oil like a WD-40 or any of those liquid wrenches, or there's a lot of varieties of manufacturers out there. The store brands are fine. If you want to use Ace Hardware or any of the store brands that you find at the auto store or the like, that's perfectly acceptable. Okay, once we've done our house cleaning there, you want to run a cotton swab inside here. Don't go all the way up. There's a little felt pad in there that's holding oil, so you don't want to knock that felt pad out of there. If you do, just put it back in. But you can clean the bottom of it. We'll do a light grease onto the post. Take that gear sleeve, put that back in. You want to move the anti-reverse dog so that it fits properly. Grab that little pin again. I'll put that pin back in. That hammer I was using to knock that pin out is a dead blow hammer. It's a plastic side and a rubber side. Don't go using metal hammers on this. If you do, you're liable to peen an end of it, and then you won't be working very well with it. All right, we got that going. We grease. I'm just going to put just a drop of oil onto that the felt piece there, just to make sure that it holds nicely. Okay, I believe we have a full metal washer system on this. You have a series of brass washers followed by steel washers. And in that case, all you need to do is make sure that they're not scarred. So some of these reels have that. Don't be surprised if you open it up and find that's the case. And just reinstall. The brass washers are keyed to they have the rectangles in them. And the eared washers are the steel ones, and they alternate. So if you wanted to be lazy about it, you probably could skip this step so long as your drag washers were working, because you don't do anything with these other than make sure that they're not scarred during a routine maintenance. These are fine. Okay, that's our bridge assembly now, and we're working fine. Just going to do a little bit more here in terms of house cleaning. I notice there's a little bit of grease kind of accumulated in the channel here. The rest of it is fine. So let's re-grease and reinstall then. I'm going to put some on the back bushing for the spool, a little bit up on the eccentric, and that's about what we need to do. So let's grab our springs. Spring goes on each side. This is why the parts tray works so well. Let's take that assembly then that we worked on. You want to center that over each one of those studs, and we can grab the jack and install that. There's a little slot that jack rides in. If you're having trouble with it, make sure that you're aligned properly. And you should get the snap. Once you get that snap, you're okay. Remember, we got to install this E-clip. The E-clip you want to line into the grooves like that. You want to hold it again because it is going to, there's times when it will shoot. I'm not saying it will this time, but there's times when it will shoot. So just be careful about it. So then we're back on that, and then we can try just to make sure that it's working properly, and it is. And then we can come back and install the bridge. And I've done this more than once, haven't I? Okay. I got ahead of myself. I wanted to put the bridge in first. So we'll show you again how to take that E-clip off. Hold to one side, hold the clip, pull that. Push down on our carrier, pull up on the jack. Now we're going to put the main gear assembly in first. It's been a while since I've done one of these. That's not an excuse, but it is a reminder that there's a certain sequence that these belong in. Okay, I'll put those two little carriers in for the bridge screws. I'll hold the screws by my backhand here. Remember, we had to use the pliers to hold them on the way out. We may need to use the pliers to hold them as we tighten them up on the way in. I'm not, well, there. Sounds like we just started to feel that move. This one seems to be tightening without the movement. Just towards the end there. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we'll put that bridge assembly on, and the yoke assembly on, and then I'll come back and tighten those two screws there. Okay, we'll do this again. Load the yoke over the gear. Set the gear in place now. I want to press down so that we have those channels clear. Get the start into the grooves. This has got to go in even, otherwise it's not going to line up properly. Then you can snap down. Now we can grab that E-clip again. Line it up in the grooves. I use a little needle nose pliers to give it the pressure I need to close it. I'm holding it as well so that it doesn't shoot. Now I'm going to go back and do what we did earlier. I'm going to grab this pliers, hold that nut. If you have a little nut driver, if you have a ratchet wrench for that, you could do it that way too. I found that the pliers is fine. We're not turning it. I don't recommend pliers as a wrench. We're not turning it. We're just stabilizing that so we can use the screwdriver to tighten it up. And there we go, tight. So Okay, so we want to install the side plate onto the frame. You need to align a couple of things here. You have to make sure that you're in on the post there. Looks like this one might be a little bit proud here. Let me just back this off a moment. Make sure we can get in on that. And then we can reinstall our screws. Remember, the 2 short screws go in the case on the top, and the 2 long screws belong below. And if you forgot that, you could go back and look at your pictures that we recommended at the beginning of the video. And what I like to do is I don't like to go in a circle with these. I like to go kind of north, south, east, west. So we're going to come down to the bottom here and install this one in the real seat. That's a long screw. And come over to the other long one on the other side here. I'll go back up and put the rest of the pieces in place. One more screw up top then. So we kind of went opposite directions. That's to keep equal pressure on that side plate. Okay, we can put our ferrule on. A little ridge came next. Doesn't appear that there's one side that's right or wrong on this one. That one has a little rim mark from the washer there, so let's go put that on the washer side. Just trying to get this started. You need to be even about this. Don't rush these. There's a distinct possibility that you can always strip this thing if you're not careful. So while we're doing this, a shout out to the first responders and essential personnel that have kept us safe during this difficult time. I do appreciate everything it is that you've done, and thank you so much. If you're a first responder, EMT, police, fire, any of the folks that are essential services, everything that you've done has made getting through this a lot easier for us. Look at that performer, huh? Simple and easy. Drags are working nicely. All right, just bundle this up. So again, doctors, nurses, hospital staff, in all capacities, administrative and otherwise, all of the folks that have been on the front lines, all of the essential workers delivering groceries and everything else to the homebound. Thank you all for your help and your efforts, and we truly do appreciate everything you've done during this pandemic. All right, we're just about done now. Just one more screw to tighten down the handle, and again, you want to thread this by hand. There's internal threads and there's external threads on these. The external threads takes the star adjuster, the internal one takes this handle screw. You don't want to strip either of them because it's going to be an expensive proposition to go replace that if you do. All right, we're started and we're almost done. There you go. So that's it. That's the True Temper 922C. If you have an Ocean City 922, you're in good stead with that. It's the same design and the same pieces and parts inside, and that's how you do it. That's how you tune one of these up. So if it's Ocean City, if it's Ocean City True Temper, or if it's just True Temper, if it's a 922C, follow this instruction and you'll do well on all of them. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I do appreciate the opportunity to show you how to do this. I hope and wish you success if you choose to do this yourself. Some of you out there may have a reel and have no desire to go ahead and fix it, and that's okay. I do reel repair by mail. As I mentioned, this is one of our viewers. This is from Kevin, and if you have a reel you want to repair, please contact me by the methods that are on the business card that follows this video, and we'll get in touch with you, tell you how to go do that. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.